Namaskar. Let's continue with yet another chapter in our refresher manual for ministerial staff for the state of Punjab, Haryana, and UT Chandigarh, as published by Chandigarh Judicial Academy. Today, let's have a look at chapter 11, which deals with sheriff's petty accounts, civil court deposit accounts, and duties of civil Nazir. High Court Rules and Orders Volume 2, Chapter 8, Part A to E describe two main accounts: Sheriff Petty Accounts and Civil Court Deposit Accounts. These accounts are maintained by Civil Nazir. Sheriff Petty Accounts mainly deals with amount of process serving agencies, whereas Civil Court Deposit Accounts deals with amounts other than Sheriff Petty Accounts. Different procedure is described to deal with these accounts. However, both accounts mainly prescribe for maintaining register of receipts, register of disbursements, and cash book. Sheriff's petty accounts and role of Civil Nazir. Volume 2, Chapter 8A, Rule 6 mentions two kinds of pecuniary transactions with litigants in respect of the Sheriff's petty accounts Part D and Civil Court deposit accounts Part E. Meaning of Sheriff's petty accounts, Volume 2, Chapter 8D, Rule 1 and 2. Volume 2, Chapter 8D, Rule 8, Rule 9 says that the principal process serving agency at the headquarters of a district and agencies at subdivisions are required to maintain sheriff's petty accounts. The full responsibility for maintaining the detailed accounts rests with Civil Nazir in the district and Naib Nazir in the subdivision. Sheriff petty accounts relate to sums received by the officer in charge of process serving agencies. It is intended for immediate disbursement. It consists of diet money for witnesses and also includes such items as expert fees or commission fees. The sums received being petty and the money being intended for immediate disbursement, so sheriff petty account items form an exception to the general rule which forbids the appropriation of receipts to expenditure. In respect of sheriff accounts, Treasury merely acts as a banker. List of items which are included in sheriff's petty accounts: sum deposited by parties as expenses of witnesses, fees of expert witnesses, and commission fees in civil, criminal, and revenue cases. Deposits of publication charges of newspapers in case of substituted service. Sums deposited as cost in connection with applications for probate, letters of administration, and succession certificates other than the cost of stamps deposited by the applicants under the Indian Succession Act 1925. All petty items received for immediate disbursement in full except when they are deposited in courts following the cash system for civil court deposits. Rule 9 says that the Naib Nazir in the subdivision and the Civil Nazir in the district receives cash and makes payments. List of registers and forms to be maintained in sheriff's petty accounts: register of receipts, register of disbursements, cash book, treasury passbook, receipt form, register of processes including warrants, etc. received from or district tehsil with or without money, diet money of munadi fee by the process serving agent at notebook of process server, payment order form, challan form, check form, Form number 29, Civil Code Volume 1, Form number 30, Civil Code Volume 1, Stock Book of Forms of Receipt Books or Checkbook, Intermediate Register of Money Orders, etc. Rule 10 says that the Civil Judge Senior Division is responsible for prompt and efficient service of all processes received in his agency. Duties of Civil Nazir in respect of Sheriff Petty Account. Rule 11 says that Civil Nazir is responsible for the proper upkeep of the accounts and for the security of the cash in his hands. Rule 11 also says that he shall submit reports relating to the members of the establishment and their duties to the Civil Judge Senior Division. Rule 11 also says that the Nazir is allowed to receive the money in cash without remitting it to the treasury and to make payments out of the money in his hand. Volume 2, Chapter 8, Section 8, Rule 34 says that a limit of Rs 20,000 in headquarters of a district and Rs 10,000 in a subdivision is imposed by and Nazir must remit the surplus to the treasury. At the end of the month, the entire amount in the hand of the Nazir will also be remitted into the treasury. Nazir should see that no payments are made except deposits shown in the register of receipts. Nazir should verify the balance of the cash and the cash book of the agency and in the treasury passbook. Nazir should see that remittances into and withdrawals from the treasury are promptly and correctly made. The superintendent is responsible for checking the work of Nazir and for seeing that the accounts are properly maintained and that all financial rules are observed. Rule 3 says that there are two principal registers of receipts and of disbursement known as Register of Receipts and Register of Disbursement. There is also a cash book. Rule 6 says that no books of account and registers other than those prescribed may be maintained without the sanction of the High Court in consultation with the Accountant General. Volume 2, Chapter 8D, Rule 31 says about daily checking. At the end of the day, the officer in charge shall compare the entries made in the Register of Receipts with the applications and the counterfoils of receipt issued, and after satisfying himself of their correctness, should set his initials against each entry in column 8 of the Register of Receipts. Volume 2, Chapter 8D, Rule 32 speaks about daily attestation. All entries of receipts in Register of Receipts and of payments in Register of Disbursements and in the payment column of the Register of Receipts should be duly attested by the officer in charge on the day of transaction before the office is closed. Rule 32 says that when Nazir is absent, he should within a week of his return check the accounts and forward a certificate to the district judge that he has carefully scrutinized the records of all the monetary transactions which took place. Rule 53 says that each page of every register and book of account shall be paged and sealed, and an endorsement shall be made at the end of such register or book showing the number of pages. Rule 54 says that all receipts and sheriff's petty accounts and blank forms, etc. shall be kept under lock and key. Rule 52 says that all receipt books and check books to be entered in the stock book of receipt and check books and shall remain in the personal custody of the officer in charge. Issue of such books will be made by the officer in charge to the Nazir after accounting for such issue in the stock book. Volume 2, Chapter 8A, Rule 6 says that civil Nazir should paste warning on the court's notice board that money will only be deposited by the litigants in the local treasury on challans given to them by the court, and the receipts are not valid unless signed by the Treasury Office. Volume 2, Chapter 8A, Rule 6 says similarly in courts in which the civil court deposits account voucher system is applicable, the same warning that money will only be deposited by themselves in the local treasury on challans given to them by the court, and that the receipts are not valid unless the signed by the treasury officer should be given by the Nazir. The main registers and their entries, Volume 2, Chapter 8D, Rule 3. Rule 3 mandates maintaining of three registers: Register of Receipts, Register of Disbursements, Cash Book. Register of Receipts. The Register of Receipts should be confined to money received either in cash or by money order. The entries in this register should be made strictly in the chronological order of receipts. The number of receipts issued should be serially noted in column 2 of the register. Whenever any entry of disbursement is made in the Register of Disbursements, the item is again entered in the Register of Receipts against the original deposit. This is important guard against improper disbursements. Progressive totals of daily receipts should be made beneath the daily total. It should be continued till the end of the month. From the monthly progressive total, the total payment as per the Register of Disbursement is to be deducted to arrive at the net balance at the end of each month, which should be carried forward from month to work out the progressive net balance at the end of the year. This balance should agree with the total of the balances appearing in the treasury and cash columns in the cash book. An analysis of the outstanding balances at the end of each month should also be prepared in the remarks column of this register. The balance for each month going back to 3 complete financial years should be worked out separately from the Register of Receipts, and the total of the items thus worked out proved with the balance in the cash book. Register of Disbursement. The register of disbursements is completed on the same pattern as that of register of receipts. It should be confined to a daily record of payments to the entitled payees. The daily entries should be totaled up and the progressive totals of daily payments should till the end of the month. Cash book. The daily totals of receipts in the register of receipts and of payment in the register of disbursements will be carried to the cash book in the cash column. The closing balance of the previous month being noted as opening balance of the next month on the first day of that month. Payments into and withdrawals from the treasury should be accounted for in this cash book in the manner described below. When the amount is paid into the treasury, an entry will be made on the payment side in the column cash and a per contra entry will be made on the receipt side in the column treasury. Similarly, when money is drawn from the treasury, an entry will be made on the payment side in the column treasury and a per contra entry will be made on the receipt side in the column cash. Progressive balance on each day should be struck under the signatures of the officer in charge. At the close of the month, there will be no cash balance in the hand of the Nazir. The balance with the treasury as per treasury column cash books should be worked out and agreed with the balance as shown in the treasury passbook. Rule 38 says that the treasury will maintain a personal ledger account in Form 44 Civil Account Code in the name of each agency dealing with it and will supply the agency with a passbook. Rule 38, Volume 2, Chapter 8D and Rule 36 says that the passbook should be sent monthly to the Treasury officer for verification of the balance shown in it. Rule 39 says that when remittance is made to the Treasury, the gross receipts and gross payments shall be entered in the receipt and payment columns, respectively, of the personal ledger account and the amount actually credited into the Treasury added to the previous balance to arrive at the progressive balance to be shown in column number 5 thereof. Rule 39 says that the amount remaining in the hand of the Nazir at the time of each intermediate remittance should be noted in the remarks column. Rule 39 also says that in addition, each such remittance shall be accompanied by a memorandum in the form Challan A and T form, which will be returned to the Nazir duly receipted by the Treasury officer. Duties of Civil Nazir relating to money orders, Volume 2, Chapter 8D, Rule 7 to Rule 33. Whenever money is received by money order, the Nazir must first enter particulars to identify the transaction in the court's intermediate register. The officer in charge of the agency will then both initial the intermediate register and sign the money order receipt. Officer in charge must see that all items in the intermediate register are cleared by the transfer entries to the appropriate register of receipts on the day of receipt if possible or the next morning and initial both the intermediate register and the register of receipts in verification of this having done by the Nazir. Rule 33 further clarifies that pays receipts received through the post office for amounts sent by money orders should be pasted in a guard file. Reference to their number in the guard file inserted in column 11 of the register of disbursements. Coupons of money orders received should be pasted in a separate guard file and a reference to their number in the guard file inserted in column 6 of the register receipts. Preparation of refund, Volume 2, Chapter 8D, Rule 29/30. Any undisbursed balance of a deposit will be paid to the depositor when a refund of the same is claimed by him. In such cases, the court shall issue a payment order in the prescribed form. The Nazir, after taking the pay's acknowledgement, shall make the necessary entries in the register of receipts and the register of disbursements. The number to be quoted on the top of the payment order will be the serial number of the transaction in the register of disbursements. Undisbursed witnesses, diet money, deposits, and civil, criminal, and revenue cases not exceeding ₹25 in amount should be returned without notice to the depositor by money order. The cost of the money order commission being deducted from the sum to be refunded. The court should inform the Nazir of the cases in which judgment has been pronounced. Before consigning a decided case, reader should give a certificate that undisbursed deposit of diet money has in all cases where necessary has been refunded to depositors. The record keeper should not receive the record unless the certificate is attached to it. Renewal of payment order, Rule 30. Rule 30 says that the court's payment order will remain in force for a period of 1 month. No payment can be made on a lapsed order unless it is renewed. On the production of a lapsed payment order, the authority which originally granted it may, if satisfied that the person producing it is entitled to receive payment, revalidate the order by the following endorsement: renewed, signed, dated. Monthly Verification of Accounts, Volume 2, Chapter 8D. Rule 41 says that on the last working day of the month, the agency will proceed to compare the balance shown in its own books with the balance shown in the Treasury passbooks. Rule 41 says that meaning of the last working day of the month means the last working day on which the accounts of the Treasury or sub-Treasury, as the case may be, are closed. Rule 42 says that there will be 3 balances in the books of the account. One balance will be struck at the end of the month in the register of receipts and will show the total amount outstanding from all previous deposits less the amount which has lapsed to government. This balance will be made up of 2 other balances. One will be the balance in cash with the Nazir as shown in the cash book, and the other will be the balance of remittances to the Treasury as shown in the passbook. The comparison of the balance in the cash book shall be made at the end of each month with the balance shown in the register of receipt. Rule 43 says that the balance in the hand of the Nazir should be physically verified by the officer in charge of the agency, who should record a note as follows before it is remitted to the Treasury. I have myself today counted the cash in the hand of the Nazir under the head Sheriff's petty accounts and find that the amount to rupees dash as shown in the cash book. Rule 43 says that this verification should not only be made monthly, but surprise inspection should also be made at the frequent intervals in order to ensure that Nazir is not using the balance for other purposes during the middle of the month. Rule 43 speaks that inspecting officers should also check the cash balance by physical verification. Rule 44 says that the balance should be checked by the officer in charge with Treasury passbook at the beginning of each month. Nazir should record a certificate to the following effect in the cash book. I have today compared the Treasury balance as shown in the books of the agency with the balance shown in the Treasury passbook, and I find that they agree. Rule 44 says that if any discrepancy is found in the account, the officer in charge of the agency should immediately take steps to have the accounts reconciled and to see that no error has crept in. Rule 44 says that if the accounts cannot be reconciled by the middle of the month, following that to which the balance relates, the discrepancy must be at once reported to the district judge, who will personally take steps to have the discrepancy reconciled. Rule 44 says that if the district judge cannot do this by the end of the month, a report must be sent to the High Court and to the Accountant General. Annual Audit of the Sheriff's Petty Accounts, Volume 2, Chapter 8B. The Sheriff's Petty Accounts and the accounts of property made over to the Nazir for custody will be audited as far as possible once a year. Presiding officers of courts should cause to be placed at the disposal of the auditors all account registers, documents, etc. The results of audit will be communicated in printed or typed audit and inspection notes to the presiding officers of the courts concerned to the district session judge, who will promptly deal with them. The result will also be conveyed to the High Court. Whenever an embezzlement, loss of property, fraud, or grave irregularity likely to lead thereto is discovered, inquiries shall be instituted at once by the presiding officer of the court. Rules for the maintenance of accounts in the Land Acquisition Act as Compensation, Volume 2, Chapter 8C. Money paid into district court under Section 31 of Land Acquisition Act must be lodged into Treasury as a revenue or civil court deposit. A register shall be maintained in each district court to show the receipt and disposal of deposit made therein by the land acquisition officer. This register shall contain particulars as to the name of each person to whom compensation is payable, the case, the amount, and the final disposal thereof, either by investment or by payment to a guardian or purchase of land. The court shall then proceed to take action in regard to the investment or disposal of money deposited in accordance with instructions contained in Section 32, 33, and 34 of the Land Acquisition Act. When the money is invested otherwise than in the purchase of land, an account in the ledge form should also be opened for the person on whose behalf the money is invested to show payment of interest and final disposal. when record relating to audit can be destroyed. Volume 2, Chapter 8B, Rule 7. No records or documents filed in any court's account should be destroyed till a period of 1 year has lapsed since they were last audited. If at the last audit any objection or remark was raised in connection with any record or document, such should be retained until the next audit. It shall not be destroyed until 1 year has lapsed since the removal of the objection originally raised. This does not apply to those records which under the rules of the court form from part of a case and are filed with the court. Civil Court Malkhanas, Volume 4, Chapter 10D. There shall be one common storeroom at the district headquarters for all the civil courts of a district under the control of the civil Nazir, to be known as the civil Nazir's Malkhana. The Malkhana shall be placed under the direct supervision of the civil judge senior division. The officer in charge shall examine and countersign the register at least once a month and inspect the contents of Malkhana at least once in 6 months. He shall at the time of the 6-monthly inspection report to the district judge the total value of the property lying with the civil Nazir and the efforts made to dispose of the property. The civil Nazir's Malkhana shall be guarded by a chowkidar. Every civil Nazir shall be provided with a strong box for the custody of all light property such as jewels, bullion, etc. up to the value of 1,000 rupees. The strong box may be placed in the outer room of the treasury if it is open and if it is closed in civil Nazir's Malkhana. Where value exceeds 1,000 rupees, it should instead of being kept in the custody of the civil Nazir be made over to the treasury officer for safe custody in the treasury under the orders of the deputy commissioner. An entry shall be made by the treasury officer in the special register kept in form PFR 2, which should be countersigned every month by the district magistrate or of the additional district magistrate. Column number 1 to 5 of the miscellaneous register F shall be filled up by the civil Nazir on receipt of the property. The number given to the deposit in column number 1 shall be noted by the Nazir on the record of the proceedings ordering the property to be made over to him. Column 6 to 8 of the register will be filled up after the disposal of the property. If the property is delivered to a private person, the delivery shall take place in the presence of the court ordering the delivery or of the officer in charge of the Malkhana as may be convenient. It shall be attested in column 6 by the initials of the officer responsible for the delivery. Control and supervision of Malkhana at subdivision, volume 4, chapter 10D. Where there is a storeroom at subdivision court, it shall be under the immediate control and supervision of the Naib Nazir. He shall be responsible for the safe custody of the contents thereof and the keys, subject to the general superintendence of the officer in charge, Rule 9. Valuable securities or jewels shall not be kept in outlying storerooms. It shall be kept in the local sub-treasury, or where there is no such sub-treasury, it shall be transferred for safe custody at district headquarters, Rule 10. Perishable property or livestock shall not be retained by the civil Nazir or Naib Nazir for custody in a Malkhana, but made over to a Sapurdar, Rule 12. Civil Court Deposit Accounts and Duties of Civil Nazir, Volume 2, Chapter 8E. Rule 1 says that civil court deposits consist of sums which are either paid into court or paid into the treasury under the orders of the court with the intention that they should be paid out again either to the depositor or to a third person and should not be finally credited to the government until they lapse to government under Article 206 Civil Account Code Volume 1. Civil court deposit accounts relate to all deposits which are not included in Sherriff petty accounts. Rule 6, each of the courts mentioned in section B, Rule 11 shall have a separate personal ledger account for its deposit, distinct from that maintained for the Sherriff petty account. Rule 7 says that the initial deposit made by the applicant for adjudication as insolvent is to be shown as a deposit under these rules. Rule 7 says that separate registers with regard to such sums may be maintained. Rule 7 also says that but the Nazir would remain responsible for the accounts. Rule 9 says that the term Nazir in these rules includes a Naib Nazir. Cash and voucher system. Rule 2 speaks with regard to the system of account, which varies. When the court is permitted to receive and repay deposits in cash, it is known as cash system, described in section B. When court is required to carry out both transactions through the treasury, this is known as voucher system described in section C. The rules given in this section shall apply to all courts alike. Rules regarding voucher system. Rule 5 says that if the amount to be received on the payment voucher exceeds rupees 500, the claimant will be required to affix a rupees 2 revenue receipt stamps. Rule 5 says that in cases in which joint interests are involved and voucher is for repayment exceeding rupees 20, should be held to be sufficiently stamped if a single receipt stamp is affixed to it, even though it may be received by more than one person. Rule 8 says that there will be a separate set of accounts for each court, and the presiding officer of each court will be personally responsible for the supervision of the accounts of his own court, dealing with money orders addressed to the courts. Rule 10 says that money orders addressed to the courts must be signed by the presiding officer and by no one else except another judicial officer appointed to discharge the duties of the presiding officer during temporary absence. It is absolutely forbidden for superintendent, clerks of court, or other ministerial officers to sign them. The presiding officer at the time of receiving any money orders shall first see that the Nazir has entered sufficient particulars thereof to identify the transaction in the court's intermediate register. He will then both initial the intermediate register in respect of the transaction and sign the money order receipt before handing over the receipt to the postman and the money with the money order coupon to the Nazir for further disposal. The money order coupon shall be treated as the depositor's application, and the procedure with regard to such applications shall be followed with regard to it. The presiding officer must see that all items in the intermediate register are cleared by transfer entries to the appropriate register of receipts on the day of receipt, if possible, on the next month, and initial both the intermediate register and the register of receipts in the verification of this having been done by the Nazir. The cash system. Rule 11 says that the system is to be followed at the stations where there is no treasury or sub-treasury. Rule 12 says that the account to be maintained in these courts are the same as those laid down in the rules for Sherriff petty accounts. Rule 13 says that a detailed list of the registers and forms to be maintained as given in Schedule B to these rules. There are 3 registers: Register of Receipts, Register of Disbursements, Cash Book. In the same forms are those described by the Sheriff's petty accounts. Rule with the reference and respect of the Register of Disbursements, in which the payment column is subdivided into 2 columns, cash and treasury, for recording cash and check payments separately for facility of posting in the cash book. These registers must be kept separate from those of the Sheriff petty accounts. Cash can be deposited either by Rule 14, depositor in a person; Rule 15, bailiff or a court auctioneer; Rule 16, deposit is made through the post by check issued by the government department; Rule 17, when the deposit is received by money order. Rule 14 says that when a deposit is tendered by a depositor in person, depositor will present an application to the court. This application will be verified by the Ahmed. He shall then pass it on the Nazir. The Nazir shall then fill in column number 1 to 7 of the register of receipts and prepare a receipts on the foil and counterfoil on the prescribed form. He shall also note on the application over his initials the serial number of the entry in the register of receipts. The Nazir shall then produce the depositor and these documents before the presiding officer, who, if he approves the deposit, shall initial column 8 of the register of receipts, hand over the foil of the receipt to the depositor and receive the money from him. Presiding officer shall then pass on the money and the application to the Nazir for further action. If he does not approve the deposit, he shall cancel over his own signature the entries which have been made by the Nazir. Rule 15 speaks that when the deposit is made by a bailiff or a court auctioneer, bailiff or a court auctioneer shall put in a similar application. The receipt will be granted to him, but will be shown the deposit as made on behalf of the judgment debtor. Receipts granted to bailiffs will be pasted in their notebooks. Rule 3 says that in order to watch the return of the execution of warrants, etc., entrusted to the execution bailiffs, and to see that on what dates the amount were realized by them and paid into the treasury, each execution bailiff shall maintain a notebook in the form prescribed in Schedule B to the rules. This notebook shall be printed in vernacular. Rule 4 says that before a warrant is handed over to the bailiff for execution, its particulars should be entered in column number 1 to 9 of his notebook by the Nazir. The remaining columns should be completed by the bailiff or the Nazir, as the case may be, after the execution of the warrant. Rule 16 says that when a deposit is made through the post by check issued by the government department, the accompanying letters will be treated as the application. The receipt will be sent to the depositor with an endorsement showing the manner of remittance. The check or remittance transfer receipt will be sent to the treasury the same day. The Nazir's account being balanced by showing the amount as paid into the treasury in the manner provided for remittances of surplus balances in Rule 27 and 28. Particulars of the check of RTR shall be entered in the intermediate register as laid down in Rule 10. Rule 17 speaks with regard to the fact when the deposit is received by money order. The money order coupon will be treated as the application. A receipt will be drawn up and will be attached to the coupon for being placed on the judicial record. All money orders addressed to the court will be received by the presiding officer as laid down in Rule 10. Important registers are given under Volume 4, Chapter 24. Miscellaneous register number F, register of property received into Nazir storeroom, civil Nazir, Chapter 10A, rules and orders, Volume 4. Sherriff petty accounts registered by civil Nazir, Volume 2, Chapter 8D. Civil court deposit registered by civil Nazir, Volume 2, Chapter 8E. So this is all about Chapter 11 with regard to the Sherriff petty account and other accounts. In the next video, we shall be looking at Chapter 12, Copying Agency Duties of Copyist and Examiner. Till then, Namaskar.